Yeah, yeah, I get it for sure. Well, hey man, it's great to meet you, and I'd like to begin our conversation. We're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic. So I want to go back to the beginnings of it. How did you survive the pandemic, and how did it subsequently change you?
Wow. Okay. Great question. We survived the pandemic because we were really busy. Congress was very busy at the time, writing new tax law, and so our company was busy reacting to that and helping our clients navigate it. Um, how it changed us, we had been working to implement a concept called ROW, which the book is Work Sucks and How to Change It. And I don't remember the author's name, but it stands for Results Only Work Environment. And it's conceptually about empowering the employees to work how and where and when they want. And so when we were set up for that, but we really as a company had not completely embraced it culturally. But the pandemic really accelerated that because people were working from home remotely. And, since that time, most of our employees haven't come back. But then it also allowed, like, one of my leadership team, right at the end of COVID, moved to Houston. And she was able to keep her job and thrive and stay on our leadership team. And we now have, more remote employees like that have left the city or the state. And it works great. I think the one thing that we miss and we have to work at facilitating is the in-person collaboration, the connectedness of being together. Um, it always surprises me when we get together. The dynamic is different, of course, but just the conversations that happen organically, uh, you don't get in a remote uh, environment. Having a Zoom conversation is not the same. I don't know why that is, but it is. So that's one of the challenges that COVID and the new work environment um, has caused. But overall, as a business, we had started to target the creative industries, and it allowed us to do that for clients all over the country as people through the pandemic really became more comfortable with the idea of working with people remotely. That they didn't the traditionally maybe they would have wanted an in-person meeting or a local provider. I
So
don't know if
is
that answers your question,
You
but
did. No, no, that's great, and that gave me a great overview of kind of that created a baton to pass on to my next question, which is, as the CEO of Core Group, if I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at Career Day and one of the kids was curious what you did on a daily basis, how would you answer that child?
well, we help businesses with their money. Um, basic. I think the add-on to that is, working with creative people. We help people that find money a challenge with their money. Because people that are have a more creative mindset, whether that's videography, cinematography, marketing agency, any of those people that are primarily thinking like that, um, often struggle with money because they don't think that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. So why did you work what was kind of the mission to work with creatives? How did that happen?
Accidentally,
Okay.
Um, so we had a couple of clients that were in the wedding uh, photography space, videography space, and they had launched a podcast, and we sponsored them for a while, and we ended up with several of them as clients. And so when we decided that we wanted to pick a target market, um, we went to the team and said, okay, two questions. One, who do you like working with? And two, who most values what you do? And when we looked at it, the list that we came up with, more than half were in creative industries. And so that was why we picked it, was because one, we enjoyed working with them, and two, they valued what we did.
So before we leave the third grade realm, what did you want to be when you were in the third grade?
Um, I don't know about third. I definitely know fourth grade, and you're going to laugh at me, but I wanted to be an astrophysicist.
That no, it's
And
great.
I remember when adults would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say astrophysicist. They just like look at me like something is clearly wrong with you, because they were like, "What's an astrophysicist?" I was totally in love with Carl Sagan and cosmos, and
Yeah.
I just loved astronomy and all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love. Have you seen the show, the Cosmos show?
Oh yeah, I watched it religiously.
Yeah, it's the way they compartmentalize time, the way they make it make sense is so genius, you know, to just wrap your head around how small we are in the whole timeline of everything.
Yeah,
It's wild,
and
man.
the genius of people like Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse is they take very complicated concepts and they explain it in a way that laymen can understand.
Yeah.
That's brilliance.
You know, I tried to do that with Hawking with the brief history of time, but
Oh,
it was
that's a
still a
tough
little
book.
what's that?
I said that's a tough book because he didn't dumb it down very
He
much.
didn't. I know. That's what I was gonna say. It's like it was still like if this is the Cliff Notes, if this is the
Right,
version that we're supposed to understand, this guy's thinking in a way that no one's gonna be able to grasp at all.
right. Right. Well, it's kind of like the author of Story Brand, Miller. His name's not coming to me. Um, he says that like as an expert, when you're doing marketing communication, you've got to dumb it down to a third grade level. But most experts in anything, when they dumb it down, they take it from a 10 to an 8, maybe a 7. And they think they've really simplified it, but it's like, no, you're
Yeah.
still. So that's how I would describe Stephen Hawking. He got it down to his 8.
Yeah. Absolutely, he did. So, who's been a hero for you in your life?
Mm. Oh, hero. That's an interesting question. Um, Historically, not people I've met. I've always admired uh, Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, because of the resolve that they had. Like facing these very challenging situations where, when I was younger, I didn't understand that what it meant to be a leader in those challenging situations, because I didn't understand that there wasn't unanimous support. Like the idea that you had to persevere through all of these challenges against an enemy, but you also had to persevere in terms of people, um, in your own house, in your own circle, that I didn't realize when I was younger, but that just made me more appreciative of them as leaders. Um, More recently, I huge fan of Billy Graham, his impact, and the humility that he did it with, especially in contrast to like the televangelists that came after him and the train wrecks and dumpster fires that they ended up being, like Jimmy Swaggart, and you know. So, his impact and how he did it the right way. Let me think. I have some business heroes. I really am a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki,
Hmm.
author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book really set me on a path of rethinking the idea of money and what the beliefs around it, how we learn about it as kids. Um, hmm, that's all I got right off the top
Well,
of my.
so let me ask you this. You may have already answered it. If you could meet one person alive on the planet that you find fascinating and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Alive today, it would
Yeah,
be Elon Musk. I would, and not because I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk, but I find him fascinating.
yeah.
Like, uh, he he reminds me of, what's the guy that did the Spruce Goose, back in the 30s and 40s. What was that guy's name? That he was very similar to, he was a uh, financial success, business success, but then he'd do these crazy things like build this huge airplane out of wood. But just Elon Musk intrigues me. I just like to sit and observe. I don't even know that I'd want to interview him. I think I would just love to be a fly on the wall and watch what he does, because his mind seems to be a fascinating
Yeah,
place.
yeah, absolutely. He's the only person that I've seen in an interview that has gotten nervous about AI. Because I'll talk to people in that industry, but he's the only one that's like, look, guys, I think he just understands what human beings can do. Because if AI ran AI, we'd be okay. But the problem is that human beings are running AI.
Right. So I was having this conversation with one of my adult children, and she was bemoaning social media. And I'm like, technology is not the problem. It's the people using the technology that's the problem.
Hmm.
And you can, it doesn't take very long to get from where we are to something like the Terminator, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see a clear path how that could happen.
yeah. Well, the weird thing is that if you look in our timeline of our lives, I mean, from when I was born, I'm 51. People were listening to 8 track. And if
Right,
you listen to Led Zeppelin 4, you had to turn the song over because it would stop.
right,
So it's
right.
weird to think that now you can cherry pick anything you want instantly out of the cloud onto a device. We can see people in a video that we thought was funny because the Jetsons were doing it. Like all of these things that were pipe dreams. So yeah, when you say we're close to the Terminator or something we can't even conceptualize, we're right on the doorstep.
Well, and look at the impact that it's had on music technology specifically, because I look back, and it was also my adolescence, so it is a jaded opinion, but I think the '80s, top to bottom, had the most diversity in music that I've ever seen in a decade. Like if you go back and listen to, you've got everything from Iron Maiden to Depeche Mode and all of those in between, right? And you had to have a certain amount of musical chops to get somebody to invest the money to uh, publish and produce an album, right?
Yeah.
And now, although I really like Spotify and I like to be able to dial up what I want when I want it, there isn't that threshold to be good, which is neither here nor there. I mean, like, but just the sitting down and listening to a whole album, nobody does that anymore,
No.
right? But if they're done right, the albums tell a story, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's just a completely different experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. So let me ask you this. what gets you out of bed every day? What is it that motivates you to do the work that you do for your clients and to also evolve as a human being? What's the collective gas in your tank, so to speak, that gets you to be who you are?
Well, my passion is helping business owners. Um, I, my family, we grew up in a family business. My dad, my uncle, and my grandfather, and they made a lot of money, and we did a lot of fun things as a family. And then the industry collapsed and everybody went bankrupt. And I was about 15 or 16 at the time. And I saw the effect that it had on the family as a unit. And basically, everybody went bankrupt and left the state looking for gainful employment. And before that, you know, they'd all been self-employed. So it was a very big um, change. And when I went along in my career, I didn't realize that that was my motivation for several years of like, I know that what happened with my family, it didn't have to be that way. Like, you know, and as I worked as a commercial banker, I could see the struggles that businesses had with money. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like there's a better way. But that was the impetus for my starting core, and it continues to be, you know, why I get out of bed is because I absolutely love helping business owners solve their problems.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I've had so much good advice. I don't know that I would be able to pinpoint that. I would tell you if I were to tell my younger self, you know, that advice.
Yeah.
I, and this is not something that I necessarily came up with myself. This is accumulation of all of the advice that I've been given. What I would tell myself is to beware the power of self-deception. Um, I think that our minds are absolutely fascinating things, but it amazes me how we can convince ourselves of things that are not true, or not necessarily untrue, but you know, justifies our emotional response. Like, you know, it's like you can really rationalize and convince yourself that something is the right path uh, based upon something that's not really uh, logical, or I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Of all of the things that you've done, become, overcome, and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
My marriage. I've been married 30 years, 31 this year, but 30 years to the same wonderful woman. And as an entrepreneur and having worked with entrepreneurs for over 25 years, I've come to the conclusion that we're crazy. And someone to be married to an entrepreneur has to be a special person. Um, and you know, the things that my wife and I have overcome in our marriage, that's what I'm most proud of. And you know, right on the heels of that would be the three adult children that we have that are um, you know, relatively uh, mentally healthy um, and productive, and you know, just good humans. So that's what I'm most proud of.
So let's say a time machine pulls up in front of your place when we get off this call, and you can go anywhere in time and see one event in human history. Where are you going?
This may sound strange. I've never been asked that question, but just off the top of my head is the crucifixion.
Yeah.
Um, I, I, and that doesn't sound like a pleasant experience, right? And it wouldn't be, but I think I would like to experience that actual sacrifice. That's what I'd go back and see.
You know, it's interesting. I asked this question a lot of people, and just today, the first person that mentioned Jesus wanted to actually go up and talk to him and make sure that he was the Messiah, just to make sure, scientifically speaking. And I've never had one person ever answer that they would actually walk up to him, which is strange to me. I've had a lot of people say crucifixion being there. I've had a lot of people say at the tomb after everything goes down, let's just see
Yeah.
it roll out. There's a lot of variations, but I've never, except for today, and it's crazy because it seems to be on everybody's brain now, just to go up and talk to him as a human being. It would be interesting.
It's probably, and this is, I'm not saying this flippantly, I think it might be because of the success of The Chosen.
Yeah,
I think the portrayal of that actor, because I was one of those people like, I don't want to see that because so much of that stuff is hinky.
yeah.
Um, and I was really worried about like how he would be portrayed, not betrayed. Um, but I think the actor, and his name escapes me, his and the writers obviously um, have done a brilliant job of portraying him in a really human way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I think it's influenced people beyond, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Ooh. Um, that's an interesting question,
This is the therapy hour.
right?
Yes.
Um, I I think at the root of it, I am a person on a journey that has produced a lot of learning and a lot of change. Um, and I'm all about sharing that for the benefit of others. Like, not in like a paternal way, like, oh, don't do this, you know, but more just like sharing the experience. And hopefully people can take something away from that experience share that impacts them positively.
So if anyone wants to hire you, learn more about you, reach out, any of the good business, how do they do it? Where do they go?
Well, we have I have a book coming out next month called Profit First for Creatives. That is a derivative book off of Mike McAllowitz Profit First. And the website is Profit First, the number four creatives. .com. And that would be my pitch because I'm super proud of this book. I poured a lot into it, my own experience, and I think it will be impactful for people. Our website is coregroup.us.com, and that's how you can find us to see if we can help you.
Excellent. Christian, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story.
You
Best of luck
bet.
with everything. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Take care.